Shalom everybody, I am Rabbi Stewart Weiss of Renata, Israel. Stay tuned for Taped with Rabbi Doug.
We're gonna see Rabbi Doug. We're gonna see Rabbi Doug. We're gonna see Rabbi Doug on your TV tonight.
But Daddy, I want to watch Monday Night Football.
Forget about Monday Night Football. There's no other thing we're going to watch on Monday but Rabbi Doug.
Yeah, Rabbi Doug on TV tonight. We're gonna see Rabbi Doug. Oh, everybody talk
Shalom and
about
welcome to Taped with Rabbi Doug. We are here in Chicago, Illinois, and I am here with my good friend from Israel, Rabbi Stewart Weiss. Welcome to the show, Baruch haba.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Doug.
I want to tell a little bit about Rabbi Weiss, as I've known him for many, many years. Rabbi Stewart Weiss, which was educated at the Hebrew Theological College in Skokie Yeshiva, where he received his Semicha, his ordination, and degrees in Hebrew literature and practical rabbinics. Rabbi Weiss served as rabbi of a congregation in Dallas and was the founding rabbi of Congregation B'nai Shalom in Buffalo Grove, and was the Jewish chaplain at Rush Medical Center in Chicago before making Aliyah and moving to Israel in 1992. He founded and directs the Jewish Outreach Center in Ra'anana, where he lives in Israel, serving Olim, those who went on Aliyah and moved to Israel themselves, through a network of religious and educational programs. Rabbi Weiss is a regular columnist in the Jerusalem Post and Hapoel Mizrachi bulletins and magazines, and he often lectures frequently in Israel, the US, England, South Africa, and he writes for a number of publications also as a guest columnist. He also often leads kosher tours and cruises to places of interest. He's a member of the Ra'anana City Council and the Rabbinical Council of America. He's past recipient of the Rabbinic Leadership Award from both the OU, the Orthodox Union, and the Young Israel Movement. Rabbi Weiss is married to Susie Klein Weiss, formerly of Cleveland, and they have 6 children. In 2002, their eldest son, Israel Defense Force Sergeant Ari Weiss, Zecher Livracha, a member of the elite Palchan Hanachal anti-terror unit, was unfortunately killed in battle against Hamas terrorists in the city of Shechem. In 2010, the Weisses were involved in constructing a synagogue, Ohel Ari Beit Knesset, in his memory, and Torah Learning Center in Ra'anana. Ohel Ari has today become the largest of Ra'anana's 80 synagogues, with several hundred congregants each Shabbat. Both Rabbi Weiss and Susie have spoken extensively around the world on the topic of maintaining faith in the shadow of tragedy, on the centrality of the state of Israel in Jewish life, and the need for Jewish unity. He's inspired thousands to strengthen their commitment to Israel, Judaism, Torah, and Hashem, and besides being beloved by his former congregants in Buffalo Grove and by so many who he has touched, it is my great honor to welcome Rabbi Weiss to our show today, and thank you for being here. So I want to start out just talking about Chicago life a little bit before you moved to Israel. You founded really the first religious community synagogue in Buffalo Grove, B'nai Shalom, which still exists today, a traditional Orthodox community. And was it hard? When you are the founding rabbi, you started out in a small place, built a big synagogue. Was it hard for you to leave that group when it started to become so successful during your tenure there?
Well, it was a great experience, and it was especially wonderful being here in my hometown and being able to be around family and friends that I grew up with. But you know, you're always seeking new opportunities, and I think we accomplished a great deal here, and we built a synagogue to be triple of membership of what it began with. And so it wasn't simple to leave. We still maintain a lot of friendships here, but we had another opportunity, kind of a stepping stone, to return to where I began my career in Texas, and to return there to a congregation I loved there as well, and ultimately to move on from there, thank God, to live in Israel for the last 30 years. So, you know, the Torah says, by God's will you encamp, by God's will you move on, and we've always felt that way. We never look back, and all of our experiences, I think, have been wonderful elements to the life that we've lived so far.
Very nice, very nice. Now, as I mentioned to my congregation last Shabbat while you were here in town, when I was, we're celebrating, my wife and I, our 30th anniversary this week, and 30 years ago we went to Israel right after we got married, and that was the same week you went on Aliyah to Israel. We ran into each other in Jerusalem that week, so that was a very nice thing. You moved to Renana. How do you end up in Renana? Was that your choice before you moved to Israel, or was that something you decided to do while you were Olim and making decisions on where you were going to settle?
Well, you know, when you grow up, especially in a Zionistic environment, your mindset is we don't care where we live in Israel as long as it's in Jerusalem. But we found that it was a soft landing to come to Renana. It's a lot of Anglos, Anglos meaning Americans, South Africans, British, Australian, etc. And we had some good friends there. Our Madrich from Bnei Akiva, the late Donnie Cates, brought us to Renana, where
former guest on my TV show when he was the director of Kav L'Kav, and I was very close to Donnie.
So that, I think, was a great help to us, but more than anything else, we felt it was kind of fertile ground for me to begin this program of reaching out to new immigrants, to new Olim, and to offer a series of both educational programs and social outlets, and to be able to interact with Olim, because Renana is a place of where a lot of Olim congregate and come to. It has a well-known absorption center, which I actually became rabbi of shortly after arriving, and that was an opportunity to build this program to reach out to Olim from many, many different countries, and we're still doing that many years later.
Very, very nice. What is the population change in Renana for the last 30 years? You've been living there for a long time, and we know that Israel has grown in its population. So many Olim, Olim not only from America, from South Africa, from England, from the former Soviet Union. What is the change of population? Is it much more settled than it was when you first went there?
Renana definitely has grown. I don't remember the exact population when I came there. I would estimate something like 60 to 70,000. Now it's over 100,000. I like to say 100,000 Jews because it's basically all Jewish. It makes it sound like a bigger city. But it's a phenomenal place. It really has everything. It has a world-class symphony, library. It has movie theaters. It has probably 50 to 75 kosher restaurants. As a matter of fact, Renana is one of the few cities, maybe the only city in Israel, where every restaurant in the city proper is actually kosher. And it's a good mix. It has about 20 to 25% Anglos, and about the same percentage, maybe even a little higher, of either Orthodox or traditional Jews living there. So as we said before, it has over 80 synagogues, and it's an exceptional place. It's become very pricey, very trendy. It was at one time looked upon more as a suburb of Tel Aviv. Today it is really looked upon as in its own right. It has wonderful parks and terrific schools, and so Renana has become really one of the prime locations to live in Israel, especially for Olim, especially for English speakers. But it's a wonderful city, all told, and I'm glad that I had 2 terms as city council on the city council there to be part of the inner workings of the city, and I think it's only going to grow. It's continuing to be more and more popular as time goes by.
So tell me about the outreach center, because you've been there for a long time now. Are you holding regular classes on the evenings? Is there a Bet Midrash? How does it work there? What kind of teaching and learning do you do? And how do you attract these Olim to come in and join you?
I think when I got to Renana in 1992, we were pretty much the only address in town for any English language Torah programs. And as a result of that, several of the different synagogues opened their doors to us and allowed us to use their facilities to hold classes, to do social events, Shabbatonim, etc. Since then, as Vernon has become more popular, there's been more competition in terms of other institutions that have developed their own English language programs, but we still continue to do our own thing, and we have regular classes that meet, and we have a newsletter that goes out every week, a Parsha sheet that has Divrei Torah, that has information about what's going on in the religious community, and in general, we cooperate. It's a very nice, cohesive, and unified team of all the rabbis and institution leaders that we all essentially work together. So it's just a nice, homogeneous place to live, and we're very happy that there is that kind of competition, because it's just increased the number of opportunities for people to study and to excel in their Judaism and meet other people.
I want to go to the tragic loss of your son Ari, who I remember as a little boy, and you know, he was a part of a very elite unit, and chasing terror is scary for any family member to know that your child is involved in something like that. And of course, a sniper, he was hit by sniper fire. Tell me about how did that affect the outreach center, your work that you do in Renana, and the future of things after suffering such a loss?
Well, Ari was an exceptional young man. He came to Israel at the age of 12, immediately made friends. His Hebrew was good, and he was a great athlete, which helped him kind of acclimate and increase, you know, his acceptance within his own age group. And he studied in some very, very good schools. And like most religious boys his age, as he got older, he was absolutely committed to going into a combat unit, as most of the religious boys do. And he chose to go into the Nachal Brigade. He wanted to excel, and he decided that he was going to try out for an elite unit, an anti-terror unit, which he ultimately was accepted into. He became a sharpshooter, an expert marksman. He was also an explosives expert, and so he was very much in demand within the unit, within the army, because just a month after he joined began the Second Intifada, which was this very violent mini war, you could say, terror war that was perpetrated by the Palestinians against Jews throughout Israel. And so he served in that unit when
Mainly against civilians.
Both, yes, mainly against civilians. So he went into that unit just a month after the Second Intifada began, and he went on many dangerous missions, most of which he didn't really want to talk about. He was very humble, very modest. He didn't want to look like he was bragging about anything, but we knew that he was very deeply involved in those missions. And he was in that unit for 2 years and 2 months, and in September of 2002, the army found and captured the main headquarters of Hamas terrorists in the city of Shechem, or Nablus, and his unit went there to find and uncover a lot of documents and information about future planned terror attacks. And during that mission, a firefight broke out between the IDF and a terrorist cell, and unfortunately he was killed in that battle in 2002. And we, I think, decided very soon after that event that we would do our best to carry on with our mission. our own mission, just as he had his mission. And we devoted ourselves, I think, even more to trying to not only locally service the community, but also to speak on a worldwide level about the situation in Israel and about maintaining solidarity with Israel. And then we ultimately were founders of this synagogue that bears his name, that, as you said, has become the largest synagogue in Renana, really with over 1,000 participants every Shabbat. And it's been a source of great pride to us. And there have been many, many things done in Ari's memory. We've had 2 Torahs written in his memory. There's a park in Renana named for him. And so far, 16 children that bear his name as well. And so they're kind of living memorials to Ari. So he's very much in our thoughts every moment, and our family is very proud of him, and we continue to struggle on.
Wow. Such a tough time to deal with. Today, the Outreach Center in Renana is, as you mentioned, still teaching and so on and so forth. What are your visions for the future? What is the is there a projected growth still in Renana, or is it so full that you're really at capacity? Do you have plans to reach out beyond Renana because of all the settlements that have opened up and become more populated nearby? How does that work with you, and what are your plans?
Well, I think we're trying to kind of keep going what we've been doing. It's ironic that the COVID crisis has brought the blessing of Zoom, so we continue to do some classes and programs on Zoom because it is a way of kind of having a worldwide audience. So in that sense, it really has brought people together through that. I also have the opportunity to kind of reach out to the wider public by being a columnist in the Jerusalem Post for many years. Been writing every other Friday in the Jerusalem Post magazine, and that does give some wider circulation. And God willing, I'm for the last few months been finally writing a book about Ari and about the ability to carry on in the face of tragedy and try to explore faith under fire, in a sense, and maintaining faith in times of tragedy. So I'm busy in those projects, and as you said, I work for a kosher cruise company, a kosher riverboat cruise company, and we do trips all over the world. I'm leaving tonight for Paris to do a cruise along the Seine.
Wow.
And we do many other trips as well. We were recently brought 70 people to Dubai, and in January we're bringing a group to Morocco. So we're also kind of involved on a global level of getting to know different communities, and exploring the Jewish aspect and the Jewish side of these fascinating places around the world.
Wow. You've really been all over. When you travel, I know you have connections to South Africa, to England. You do a lot of traveling. You come to the States on and off. When you travel and you speak, do you speak about different things all the time, or is this message your main message that you're carrying on to different groups each time you go around and speak?
I think the primary message that I try to leave people with is the importance of supporting and hopefully living in Israel. I really believe that the arrow of history is pointing towards Israel, and this is where Jewish destiny and the future of the Jewish people will be decided more than any other place on earth. And I think it is not just a commandment to live in Israel, which in and of itself should be the prime mover, but also to recognize that God has moved history to the point where we now have a state, and something we prayed for thousands of years, and now the door is open, we have to walk through it. So the message I really always try to leave any group with is that every person should have a plan that plan should include increasing your connection to Israel, preferably living there, if not full-time, part-time, and indeed many people have at least chosen to make Israel part of their yearly or semi-annual visit. Many people have purchased homes in Israel. Many people have children and grandchildren living there. And so I think this is the wave of the future. Nobody knows what the future holds, and nobody knows how long life in the diaspora will remain wonderful and prosperous. But ultimately, I think the plan is that all Jews are meant to live in Israel, and that's the single most important message that I can send.
Well, I know a lot of people still today that I talk to say, oh, your children are in Israel this year, they were there this year, they were there last year, they were there the year before. Isn't it scary for you? Isn't it scary? And then we have what happened on July 4th in Highland Park, Illinois, with a terrorist shooting of Jewish people and others during a Independence Day parade for freedom. So I always come along and say, I think you're safer walking down the streets of Israel. If you look at the odds, if you look at the news, then you are possibly walking down the streets in Chicago, because we know what goes on in other neighborhoods in Chicago all the time as well. And would you agree that's true?
Well, again, the world's become a dangerous place. I think, there is this terror element that sometimes strikes Israel. Now it's striking places throughout the world. We've seen Texas and Copenhagen in the last week, and now Highland Park. Israel is essentially crime-free, so you can walk the streets. My children, grandchildren, they don't have any worries about going out at midnight if they need to. So in that sense, Israel is very secure, and this global threat of terrorism is something that is not limited to any one place. So, we don't take any satisfaction when these things happen, but it's just a further indication that you can't necessarily avoid it pretty much anywhere on the planet, so that shouldn't be a deterrent to coming to Israel.
Right. So let me just go to another subject just for a moment. We don't have to go far into it, but the political situation in Israel right now, you're writing a lot of columns and things are going on. We have a new temporary prime minister, a change of government again because the dissolving of the government, and another set of elections coming up soon. What is the situation politically in Israel as you see it? And how is it going to play out as you see it? And how is it going to be positive for the population and for you?
Well, we're talking today. Tomorrow may be a completely different situation because it's so rapidly changing. I was not happy to see the latest government ultimately end, because I felt that Naftali Bennett is a very good person. He has a lot of talents. Israel had gone through 4 elections without being able to form a coalition, each one costing $500 million shekel, so it's a very, very expensive and grueling process. And I think his desire was to try to put together a coalition of many, not a single-minded or one ideology only, but for many different elements, and I think that actually ultimately is something we would look forward to, is kind of having a cure for the disunity of the Jewish people. That's always been our greatest challenge and threat and drawback, is this disunity from the very beginning of Judaism. You take the fight between Esav and Yitzchak, and Yaakov and Esav, and Yosef and his brothers, and we've always had this, and it's very sad that Israel is so divided that it's difficult to get any kind of significant majority to agree and form this coalition. So even when there is a coalition formed, it's very slim, 61, 62, 63 seats out of 120. You'd want to see something closer to 80, so there really would be a consensus.
Just in our last minute or so, I just wanted to ask you, what's your dream and your hope? What is your dream and your hope? You are a rabbi, you are a teacher, you are an activist, you support the Israel Defense Forces very fervently in their mission. You hope for peace, I'm sure, like we all do, but at the same time, security for Israel. What is, just in your closing words, what is your hope for Israel, for the Jewish people in coming years? We're all getting older. There's a new generation going to be taking over for all of us. What is your hope for accomplishment in the near future?
Well, my dream for Israel, I think, is that this phenomena that has begun with the Emirates and the Abrahamic Accords, whereby a new spirit is moving through the Arab world, the Muslim world, whereby you can have your differences with Israel, but you can also focus on the good things and establish relations, is something that we've waited for more than 70 years to happen. And recently came back from Dubai, and it's just an amazing environment there where Jews and Israelis are welcomed. It's probably the only place in Israel where you can walk down the street with an I Love Israel t-shirt and nobody will say a negative word to you. And I believe and hope that can spread and develop into encompassing many more countries, which will be an important dynamic in strengthening Israel's place in the world. I think that anti-Semitism is clearly a threat that is existing everywhere, both throughout the Muslim world, but also in America and in Europe, and I think that has to be dealt with, and that's a scary thought about the future. So I think governments have to come to grips with that and have to have a zero tolerance of these kinds of hate crimes and hate speeches, and I am hopeful that will happen, and I'm hopeful that the situation's only going to get better, at least in Israel, and I do have my concerns about what's happening in America, and nobody can predict the future, but I think that we've been given this opportunity to create the State of Israel and to build the State of Israel, and I think it's something that each and every Jew and any good person should be involved in, because it's good, it's rewarding, and it's only going to take us to a good place.
Very nice. I can't thank you enough again for being with us, and thank you for being with us. Remember, you can check out our website, www.tvrabbi.com, where you can also see former shows on the web. If you want to email Rabbi Weiss or us, you can email info@tvrabbi.com. I will be happy to forward that email to him, and I know he'll get back to you personally. Thank you again for being with us, and thank you for being with us.
Pleasure.
Have a safe travels, Nesiat Tova, and hope to see you again soon, hopefully in Israel. Shalom, everyone. See you next week. Bye-bye.
And I'm talking about Rabbi Doug. Talking about Rabbi Doug. Talking about Rabbi Doug on your TV show. Gonna see Rabbi Doug on the TV tonight.
This has been a Taped with Rabbi Doug production.